So this video is about artist lore because I saw a mistake a lot of people make. And the mistake, well, there are two mistakes really. The first mistake is they don't have artist lore, which is a mistake in its own right. And a second mistake is people make artist lore that's like that 4 hour Skyrim video game analysis lore video on YouTube to fall asleep to. No, nobody's gonna fucking read that. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit about you. Nobody knows you. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how to change that. If somebody's just a casual listener or just a casual fan, I'm gonna show you exactly how to serve them some lore to turn them into a more involved fan. Maybe not a super fan right away, but you feed them 2 or 3 of these lore situations and they will become a super fan because now they feel like they know you and they know something interesting about you. Also, we're gonna cover the big gap. The big lore gap that a lot of people have is they live boring average lives. Okay? So if this is point A where you are, where you want artist lore, and this is point B where you have a good artist story, um, overcoming this gap is something we're gonna do today. Because if your life is just normal, I'm gonna show you how to make use of that and still tell an interesting story. Because I can guarantee you, what you think is normal still isn't normal and is interesting to other people. But we're about to get into that. So, the important reason an artist, or literally anybody, should have lore is the same reason old watchmakers like the Rolex and Patek Philippe have lore. At one point, a product isn't about a product anymore. At one point, a brand isn't just about a brand, it becomes a universe, an experience. So, for example, Rolex might say, we started crafting our watches in 1853 in a small Swiss town 10,000 kilometers in the mountains, and this old guy, our founder, crafted this watch from a stone that came from the sky. He made it from a fucking meteor. And you know that kind of bullshit. I don't know Rolex's actual story, but it's a fun story. It's a fun thing to be involved with. And if you know that, you kind of feel like you're in the club, like you're in the knowledge. If you know Skyrim lore, if you know old watchmaker lore, fashion brands like Louis Vuitton constantly shove lore in your fucking throat. And so do brands like Porsche. A lot of luxury brands have lore because a lot of brands are actually about telling the story that comes with the product. That makes it a more complete experience. So when you buy a bag, you buy just a bag to put your things in. When you buy a Louis Vuitton bag, you buy a bag from the most famous sacred leather of like the Indian sacred holy leather cows coated with sheep fur from the Himalayas that only live on this one mountain. It's suddenly a different fucking bag, even if the actual bag is the same. Like, you still put your things in it, it doesn't change. Yeah? First, covering the mistake that people make in making their lore really, really long or not having any lore at all. Well, if you don't have any lore at all, it's straight up a mistake. You're not connecting with people, and people have no reason to connect with you because everybody loves to connect to a story. But if you make your lore really, really long, I've seen people say, okay, so this is the character, and this is how he relates to this other character, and they're fighting all the time because they're two different sides of a split personality. That's too long. An average person has no interest in it going that deep. What an average person has an interest in is something like this. So, a simple setup, a simple confrontation with rising stakes, and a simple resolution. I'll give you an easy example. XXXTentacion had a girlfriend. He hit his girlfriend. She took some damage. Or did she? It's a bit ambiguous. And then the resolution, the crisis is that he was taken to court. There was a criminal investigation. And then the falling action and the resolution is kind of that, the whole situation blew over. Everything is fine. Back to normal life. Everything is okay. Now, I just gave you a big clue compared to if your life is boring and you don't know how to tell a good story. Every good story starts with a boring life, and at the end, every good story goes back to a normal, boring life. So your life doesn't need to be fucking crazy. I know you had at least one or two crazy things happen in your life. Everybody's had one or two crazy things happen in their life. And this is really what you need to talk about. So I'll give you another really easy example. Gangster rappers do this all the time. So you were just a person in a gang. We'll do Pop Smoke. You're just a person in the Wu gang. And then you see some people from the Cho gang. See the Chos. For the crisis, you have an armed or like either a fight or an armed altercation. And then for the resolution, usually nothing happens unless somebody died. That's the resolution. If somebody died in a gang fight, the next story arc is usually the prison arc. You know, like 6ix9ine. 6ix9ine was making gangster rap. He got caught on RICO charges. The big court case resolved in the fact that he was a fake. Everything went back to normal. 6ix9ine is free. Nobody cares again. Okay? So how do you use this? How do you use this very simple story structure? And this might unironically be one of my shorter videos because it's not complicated. To follow along. Well, you need to think of an event where something high stakes happened. High stakes to you. It doesn't have to be a world-ending, crazy prophetic event. So, for example, I'll think of a story from my life on the fly. Let's say I was living life. This is the setup. Until I met this girl. Okay, we're raising stakes a little bit. And I really like the girl. Okay, met a girl. I like the girl, so I tried pursuing her. You know, I tried to woo her attention. The stakes are rising. And then it turns out she has a boyfriend who found out about this. I didn't know she had a boyfriend, but he found out about this and he didn't like it. And he came to me with the motherfucking gun and started threatening me and shit. And so, literally, all I did was I said, man, I didn't actually know she has a boyfriend. You know, not trying to do anything weird here. You're a fucking retard for, showing up and threatening me with a gun, by the way. But, you know, I know she has a guy, so, peace out, bitch, later. And, life went back to normal. I never talked to her again. This is the end. It's a simple story. It's not fucking complicated. It's just something that happened. Some crazy motherfucker saw me hitting on his girl. He came up armed and he, tried to like press me about it. And I was like, I didn't fucking know she was dating. Sorry. And I just fucking never talked to her again because I'm not trying to two-time, That is really as complicated as it needs to get. And you need to have 2 or 3 of these that you might occasionally tell people. So let's give you another story, right? Say I was a recording artist, which I guess now technically I am. Maybe that video has come out by now. This would be a part of my lore. Interesting enough, out of the ordinary, out of the ordinary. Let's give you another story. This is set up, just living life. Oh. So I was just living life, minding my own business, until I bought a car. Bought a car. Now, the stakes started rising a little bit. It was a Mercedes when I quickly realized that it was a stolen car. And the police came to my fucking house and tried to press me and charge me with stealing the car. They're like, you're in possession of stolen property. So this is stakes keep rising and this is a crisis. But then I said, look, boys, I bought the car. Some sort of resolution. I just said, look, boys, I bought the fucking car, fair and square. Here are my papers. This is the contract. This is me giving a guy the money, a bank transfer. And this is me going to register this car with the fucking officials. I bought the car, I didn't steal it. Here's proof of me buying it. And they said, okay, and left. I don't know if the guy was ever found. Nothing ever happened to the car. I ended up selling it. We're back to normal life. Stories end. It's literally that simple. It can be a story about a relationship. It can be a story about a toxic relationship. It can be a story about unrequited love. Your crisis could be, man, she fucking rejected me, and told all her friends, and fucking, they all laughed, and then I could never show my face there again. That could be a crisis. Literally anything in your life where you felt strong emotions is a good story for your artist lore. If you felt strong emotions, for example, traveling, that's not the same as feeling strong emotions as somebody rejecting you or being in a toxic relationship or, holding a gun to your head. Generally, this is just a general rule. Generally, negative stories are better than positive stories. Because if you tell people a story that, I was living my life and then I got really, really sad, the sadness was just, a lot. It was really hard to deal with. But then I went up to this mountain. I found a yogi guru and, he helped me like, with my stress and I started doing yoga. And so now I feel much better. Life is nice. That is a positive story. Not very interesting. So think of negative stories. Like really unironically, think of bad shit that happened to you and just follow this simple story structure of setup, raising stakes, crisis, and resolution. Maybe on Instagram Live, maybe on interviews, maybe on like just, when you talk to a fan in private, just tell these stories. Tell these stories to people you meet in the industry because that's how they remember you. I'll tell you a very real story. I made a connection in a different industry, not in music, but this still works. So when when the war in Russia happened, right? I left and I went to Australia and I didn't have much money with me. I didn't have much anything. So I actually ended up working at a poultry plant. So, I'm actually working at a poultry plant. I'm having a really shitty time. And I go to a bar. And I meet a guy, nice guy. And I tell him my story of, I was living in Russia, war happened, I, quit my job, left my house, left my everything, and moved out. Now I'm here. Now I have to work at a fucking poultry plant because I don't know anything. That was the kind of first opportunity that was tossed at me. And he said, damn, bro, holy shit, it sounds terrible. I might get you to work at our nightclub. And so the crisis was that as I was working at the poultry plant, I actually quit because I was really hoping he'd get me to work at the nightclub. So the crisis was that I quit and I needed money to pay rent. You know, I wasn't working and I was waiting for their response. So the stakes actually kept rising for like 2 weeks because nothing is fast in Australia. It's just how it is. I was kind of hoping I'd get hired like, in a few days, but I was waiting for 2 weeks with no income. And I couldn't really look for another job either. And I had to pay weekly rent, which in Australia was quite high. But then the resolution was, this is the res, is that he came through. And he and his friend convinced the manager of the nightclub to give me a job. And I worked at the nightclub, and life got back to normal, and everything was fine. Literally as simple as that. So tell these stories, craft these stories. Occasionally, just throw them at people who you meet. Throw them at your fans. Throw them at industry insiders. Tell your sound engineer. Tell your fucking anybody who you're just hanging out with, spending time with, and they will remember you for your stories. People remember you for your fucking haircut and who you are. And they find out who you are not by you saying, oh, I'm a good guy. They find out who you are by you telling them events from their life, from your life, pardon me. Yeah. You tell them events from your life, and then they make this decision and they get to know you better. The only thing you have to do is follow this simple story structure to make the story actually interesting and not boring. And if you like this video, consider joining the WOP community in the link below. We have a very active community of active artists who are serious about their development. I'll help you out with your branding first and foremost. I'll help you out with your lore if you need it. I'll help you out personally. You can chat with me in the group chat with the community. I'll help you out with your content. If you don't know what kind of content to do, I'll help you out. It's cool. I'll just give you ready-made solutions that you can copy. If you didn't know what to do with your visuals, like your dressing, your fashion, if you feel like you look a bit too plain or uninteresting, you want to look better, I got stuff for that. I'll help you out with literally any problem you have, and we also meet up for group calls occasionally, and we also help each other out, and I'll help you out. So if that's something you're interested in, just click the link below, and if you like this video, watch this video next.